27-year-old Jessika Kalaher resided in Austin, Texas. After earning her degree from Texas State University, her schedule was non-stop, juggling 2 jobs, preparing for her master's degree, and staying socially active. She worked part-time at a grocery store and also took substitute teaching jobs. Her ultimate goal was to land a full-time role at an elementary school. Despite the pressures of work, debt, and education, Jessika remained positive. She believed better days were ahead. Her family recalled a quote she once wrote, "Someday everything will make perfect sense. Laugh through the confusion, smile through the tears, and remember everything happens for a reason." She was described as diligent, optimistic, and genuinely fun to be around. On Labor Day, September 7th, 2009, Jessika spent the afternoon with her cousin Melanie, who was also her closest friend, along with a few others. The group relaxed by the pool and had a BBQ. After a few hours, they headed to a restaurant, then later went out to play pool at a bar. Jessika, who was the designated driver and had work the next day, stayed sober. Around 1:30 a.m., Melanie offered her to spend the night, but Jessika politely declined. She wanted to wake up early, be fresh for work, and pick up some dog food for her pets before going home. They hugged goodbye, and Jessika drove off. Her next stop was a nearby Walmart. Later that morning, Melanie received a call from one of Jessica's co-workers. Jessika hadn't shown up for work, something that was very out of character for her. Concern grew rapidly. Melanie contacted others, but no one had seen or heard from her. Jessika lived with Melanie's brother John, a police officer. He said he hadn't seen her that morning either, but assumed she had returned late and was asleep. However, when he went home to check, one of her dogs appeared distressed. Her room looked untouched. She hadn't returned at all. John immediately reported her missing and requested phone tracking. The signal last pinged near a busy area, the intersection of US Highway 183 and Walton Way in Cedar Park, outside a Little Caesars restaurant. Melanie and her boyfriend Sergey rushed to the location. Jessica's white Kia was parked there neatly. The doors were shut, but a terrible odor was noticeable even from the outside due to the hot 90-degree weather. Inside, Jessica's body was slumped in the driver's seat, which had been moved far back, much further than her usual setting. The windows were rolled up. She wasn't responding. There was an unusual mess inside, including what appeared to be feces. Her skin was red from heat exposure, and her body was covered in sweat. Sergey immediately called 911. It quickly became clear Jessika had been murdered. A ligature mark stretched across her neck, with hemorrhaging around her face and eyes. Her body showed signs of a brutal struggle. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled twice. First with a cloth-like item, likely the strap of her dress, and then manually by hand. There were scratches on her neck made by her own fingernails as she tried to fight back. Her phone was still accessible, but her wallet, cards, and car keys were missing. Police began canvassing nearby stores. A local restaurant employee reported seeing Jessika alive that morning. Oddly, she had been acting strange, crawling in her car naked at one point, then seen wearing a dress and sitting by her car. Others reported her as confused and dazed, but no one had intervened. Her toxicology report later showed she had no alcohol, drugs, or medication in her system. Walmart surveillance cameras confirmed she arrived alone at around 1:45 a.m., wearing a white dress and red cap. She bought a large bag of dog food and headed out. She interacted with no one, but shortly after, a man in a brown shirt and baseball cap, who had entered Walmart a few minutes before her, began following her. Jessica's car was parked behind a large tree, so the camera couldn't catch the moment he approached. However, minutes later, her car pulled away from the lot. That man was never seen going back into Walmart. Instead, he reappeared walking from her car back to his truck and drove off. Later, the man used Jessica's debit card at a nearby gas station around 3:05 a.m. Police released the surveillance images and put out an alert for the red pickup truck. Soon, a woman named Leslie came forward. She said her fiancé's best friend, 37-year-old Crispin Harmel, drove that truck. He had failed to show up at her apartment that night, which was unusual. She felt uneasy and decided to alert authorities. Crispin had been previously stopped by police weeks before, and body cam footage showed he was wearing the same hat and driving the same truck. When questioned, Crispin admitted to knowing Jessika. He claimed they met through a hookup website and had arranged to meet at Walmart. He said they had sex in her car, and then she dropped him back off. According to him, she voluntarily gave him her debit card. But police already knew the Walmart footage showed no such interaction. Jessika never appeared to notice him, and she was clearly shopping, not there for a meeting. There were no messages, calls, or history between them, not even a trace on the alleged hookup website. Police believed he followed her, forced his way into her car, raped and strangled her, left her to die, and returned to steal from her. Oddly, several people had seen Jessika alive hours after the assault. Confused and incoherent. How was that possible? Medical experts proposed a theory called delayed death from strangulation. The injuries from being strangled could cause brain damage that leads to disorientation, seizures, loss of control of bodily functions, and eventual death over several hours. The extreme heat worsened her condition. Jessika had likely been so disoriented she couldn't seek help, use her phone, or escape. Though police believed Crispin Harmel was responsible, they didn't have enough hard evidence to charge him with murder initially. What they did have was enough to book him for evidence tampering, and in May 2010, Crispin pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Meanwhile, Jessika's murder investigation remained open. Detectives and medical experts dug deeper, revisiting everything again and again until they found a scientific explanation that could answer the bizarre events after Jessika was attacked. A paper from a forensic medical professor at Indiana University highlighted a phenomenon where victims of strangulation can die hours later, not instantly, from brain and airway damage caused by the attack. The condition is called delayed death due to strangulation. This theory matched Jessika's behavior perfectly, her confusion, the physical symptoms, and the time between the assault and her death. Her brain had likely been severely damaged during the attack. The seizure-like symptoms and presence of feces inside her car were consistent with advanced neurological failure. Dr. Bill Smock, a forensic medicine expert, explained the sequence. First, the brain loses oxygen leading to unconsciousness, then seizures. Bodily functions shut down one by one, the rectal and bladder control go first, then memory, personality, and finally, if no help arrives, breathing and heartbeat stop as the brainstem dies last. Crispin had choked Jessika to near death, assuming she was gone, but in reality, she was left brain-damaged and dying, trapped inside her hot car with no way to seek help. This wasn't just a tragedy, it was premeditated violence. And now prosecutors had the scientific ammunition to finally pursue him for capital murder. In May 2013, a grand jury officially indicted Crispin Harmel for the capital murder of Jessika Kalaher. He pleaded not guilty. During the trial, Dr. Smock testified that Jessika's death aligned with the effects of prolonged, non-fatal strangulation, consistent with what witnesses saw after the attack. He said the erratic behavior was caused by a combination of heat stroke and hypoxic brain injury from being choked, not drugs or alcohol, which toxicology had already ruled out. The defense focused on the lack of DNA evidence linking Crispin to the crime. They argued that if she had clawed at her attacker, his DNA would be under her fingernails. But none was found. However, forensic experts explained that heat, sweat, humidity, and time could easily degrade DNA. Jessika had been in a hot car for hours before she was found. It was unlikely DNA would survive those conditions. Despite this, the defense pushed on, calling the science theoretical and suggesting that Jessika's actions were voluntary or unrelated to Harmel, but their arguments were crumbling against the timeline, surveillance footage, and medical analysis. To add weight to the case, prosecutors brought in Crispin's ex-girlfriend Elizabeth. She told the court that after the crime, Crispin claimed his apartment had burned down and that his phone was lost in the fire. Both blatant lies. His phone had been seized by investigators. He also claimed his truck had broken down. Again, untrue. Investigators had impounded it for evidence. These lies showed a clear attempt to mislead and hide his involvement. Despite the mounting evidence, the first trial ended in a mistrial. The prosecution was accused of withholding key evidence, and the entire process had to start over. Adding to the tragedy, District Attorney Jana Duty, who oversaw the case, was later jailed for violating a gag order. She was also sanctioned for misconduct by the Texas State Bar. Years later, she was found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, another tragic chapter linked to Jessika's story. In 2018, nearly a decade after Jessika's murder, Crispin Harmel was retried. Investigators testified again, presenting damning inconsistencies in his statements. Sergeant Bond explained that Jessika's seat was pushed so far back that she physically couldn't have driven it. Yet Crispin had claimed she dropped him off. He said Jessika gave him her debit card, but the PIN was supposedly written on his hand, and when questioned, he said he discarded it after hearing police were looking for him. The excuse made no sense. Surveillance footage showed Jessika never acknowledged Crispin inside Walmart. She wasn't looking for anyone. His presence near her car, the footage of him returning to his truck, and using her bank card all directly contradicted his story. Finally, the jury delivered the verdict: guilty of capital murder. Since the prosecution chose not to seek the death penalty, Crispin Harmel was sentenced to life in prison without parole. In 2020, he appealed the verdict, but it was upheld. He remains behind bars, serving a life sentence for the brutal killing of Jessika Kalaher. Jessika's family has never fully recovered. Her cousin John, the same officer who reported her missing, said he hoped knowing Harmel was behind bars would bring some relief. But it didn't. He still gets to live. Jessika doesn't, he said. Her father was even more heartbroken. He took away my chance to walk her down the aisle. She would have been a wonderful mother. I know it. I miss her every day. Melanie, the one who spent Jessika's final hours with her, still struggles with what she saw that morning. The grief is permanent. Even the happiest memories are now scarred by that moment in the parking lot. There's always something missing. No day will ever feel whole again, she said. Closing statement, voiceover. Jessika Kalaher had a bright future. A career in teaching, a master's degree within reach, and a life filled with promise. All of that was taken in a moment of evil. We remember her not just for how she died, but for the light she brought to everyone around her. Thank you so much for watching. If this story impacted you in any way, please consider sharing it and help keep Jessika's memory alive. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below.